life doesn't stop because you have addiction and recovery. The rest of life keeps happening. And I think part of what really helped us also was that we we did get engaged in whether it was writing groups. There was definitely the therapy side of it. We trained for a century, which required us to go and cycle X number of miles every day. The structure that we put in by these commitments that were external to us, that we could have not honored because they weren't work related or family related, but they were us committing to activities that involved us with other people and away from each other, or sometimes together but in the company of other people. I think it helped deal with one, the curiosity of seeing each other in our element and having a chance to see each other be the person that we love.
Went out and started playing tennis soon after coming to Philadelphia.
Otherwise known as chasing balls around the court.
Yeah, we joined the tennis ladder club and did some competition long before we should have actually competed. But we were out there. We took tennis lessons in Thailand every winter. We went over there, so we made some tennis relationships through that sport they weren't broad relationships, people we knew that we played tennis with, and you developed a very best friend from that venture into tennis. Cycling is another one. We've made relationships in the cycling community here in Philadelphia, and people that we would go out and ride with, or at least we'd run into them on the trails and we have coffee and invite them to our home and vice versa. So relationships have developed through that activity.
Jeremy, I think that activities are really important for a couple of reasons. One is recovery is a lot of hard work. It's a lot of soul work, and sometimes it can get to be very heavy. And so the activities are the fun factor. You need to have some fun. You need to be able to say we're going to go out and chase some tennis balls on the court, or we're going to go go to the cottage and just goof around in the kayak or on the dock, and sometimes just leave all the focus on recovery. It never really goes away, but in my view, it can't always be the main focus of every breathing moment. You have to have these moments where you're doing something and you're having fun. Otherwise, it's too serious. So I think that's one important reason. And obviously the playfulness you have on the tennis court, well, it shows up in the bedroom that evening or the next day. And if you're not able to have fun going out and doing things, how are you going to be able to have fun when you're like alone naked? And so I think that's really important. The other part of it is, at least in our case, because of my tendency to want to protect Bill and take care of Bill, it was very easy for me to get very enmeshed with Bill and forget myself. And I remember this friend that Bill was referring to, Janet, at one point having this conversation with her, and I said, Janet, I am going to go take a photography course at University of the Arts. I'm not going to be good at it. I'm probably not going to do my homework. But I'm giving myself permission to go do something that's entirely for myself, at which I don't have to be proficient, and that doesn't involve Bill. And that was like, I remember saying it with that kind of tonality. I was putting a stake in the ground of this is for me. And so I think that gave me a permission to go do something that was self-care and show up as Chantal, not as Chantal and Bill, not as Chantal in recovery, but just Chantal.
I think that's such an important piece, part of engaging life, is the permission and the pursuit of pleasure. Like, what are the things that give joys? Because I think so often, again, what are the things that are probably warning signs, flags, the role of stress or to numb out, that can reinforce addictive behaviors. And so discovering things that give you pleasure in sobriety, I would imagine is a huge component of recovery. And just quality of life. And then in terms of a couple, Mago speaks to high energy fun and the value, as you're saying, getting into your body. So it could be running, bicycling, but doing activities that ups your energy. And again, that playfulness, the quality of that, and how that then translates to the relationship as a whole. And as you said, also to the bedroom.
I just listening to you guys talk about the different sources of engagement, as an individual and as a couple, just remind me of the importance of really discussing, with couples, the independent self and nourishing that in the context of the relationship. Because the term codependency kind of gets tossed out a lot, but we do need people. So we, of course, focus on that couple dyad, as the prime focus of healing. But again, the value and the new sources of engagement sounds like it really kind of gave a spark. Again, listening to you, Chantal, talk about that to feel some life come back into that independent self, separate from that. And again, just how valuable it is to bring that up in the process of treatment, that there are many parts to this relationship, and the independent self is a big part of that, and very important.
Just taking on an activity, like I took this photography class, then Bill started thinking about, oh, well, what will I do? And so it has a really good spiraling effect of, well, if you're doing that, I'll go and do this. And not in a negative confrontational way, but in an aspirational way where I would come home from my photography class all fired up because I did this, where I finally mastered this skill, and it brought freshness to the relationship because it was something else so new to talk about that wasn't related to family or work or expectations. And so I think it's really important, and we talk about this still today, about, especially during the pandemic, is how do you keep the conversation fresh when you're together all the time? And this has been obviously amplified with the pandemic, and the responsibility that we each have to bring something new into the relationship.
Earlier in my recovery, I would go on motorcycle meetups, and I would get my motorcycle and go out with a bunch of guys on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon and have my time to do something that I absolutely love doing. As separateness from Chantal, even though she has a motorcycle, but I would go out and do that riding.